Hi, welcome to the Badass Breastfeeding Podcast. This is Dianne, your lactation consultant.
And I'm Abby, the Badass Breastfeeder. And today's episode is brought to you by Fairhaven Health. Fairhaven Health sells the wildly popular Milk Saver that has moms raving about how much milk they are collecting by simply collecting their leaking breast milk. And today's episode is also brought to you by a new sponsor, Love and Fit, a revolutionary new activewear brand that is designed for moms by moms. And we'll hear more about our sponsors later, but I think Dianne has our review of the week.
I do have our review of the week. We get such good reviews. I say that every week. I'm always like, I don't know which one to read. But this is from, let me put my glasses on. Bank18, who says that she loves us. Put 2 little heart emojis in there too, just for kicks. I absolutely love this podcast. I wish I'd found this podcast earlier, but I was about 4 months into my breastfeeding journey when I found it, and I am now almost 9 months into my journey. This show has given me so much helpful information for myself and other breastfeeding moms in my life. Thanks to the show, I have the confidence to unapologetically nurse my baby no matter where we are. Thank you, ladies, so much for what you do. Congratulations. Awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and that was a couple months ago, so she's probably like creeping up on a year. So good for you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's quite
Congratulations. Happy first nurse-iversary.
I know. Oh, that's a word. Holy cow.
Yeah.
A mouthful. Nurse-iversary. But if you want to send us reviews, we would love to hear your thoughts about all the things. So send us reviews. We'll read them. You could be our review of the week. You can put them on iTunes. That really helps the podcast a lot. Or if you can't put it on iTunes, you can just send us an email because we read those too. And we love them. We love to hear them. And thank you so much. Thanks for the love. It's important.
Badassbreastfeedingpodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Is what she means by email.
Yeah. I guess I just assumed everybody knew that. But I'm out of it. So don't pay attention to me.
No, it stands to reason.
Yeah.
Badassbreastfeedingpodcast@gmail.com. That's what it would be.
So send it to us. We'll watch for them. And that's it. And off we go. We're going to do a popular topic. Popular.
Yeah, we're going to do a topic based on all of the messages that you all send us that start with, how can I increase my milk supply?
Like the question.
It's like question of the century.
Yes, a question of the century when it comes to breastfeeding.
And it would
mothers.
be century, right? Because it's probably about a century where people started wondering, Before that, we just assumed we were making enough.
You know, and I'm sure there's still places in the world where people don't even think about their milk supply, right? Like where it's just like, it's just a thing.
In places where breastfeeding is more normalized, people have less concerns, less issues, because it's just happening everywhere.
Yeah.
So
I love to talk about this topic because there's so much. And a lot of it is so society driven, I feel like. Yep. You know, and I did a video consult with somebody this week who, was really concerned, like, milk supply and da-da-da. It's like the issues they were having were not milk supply issues. It was the baby was fussy, changing up her sleep patterns, like doing different things. And it was like, that baby was fine. Like milk supply was fine. But it seems like whenever your baby does something that you don't think they should be doing or that isn't typical for what they did the day before, got to be a milk supply issue, right? Got to be milk supply.
Yeah, right. Are not getting enough to eat.
No.
I'm not making enough. They're hungry and I need more milk.
Yeah. When that's not it at all.
So what are the popular things that we see that really send people in, into a tizzy about milk supply? Like definitely the fussy baby.
Fussy baby.
Like after they nurse, they're super fussy.
Mm-hmm.
So that we just assume that they're still hungry and that there's nothing left in the boob.
Right. Or maybe you never even thought that, but somebody else.
Or your doctor told you
spouse,
that.
Your doctor, somebody said, oh, well, are you sure the baby's eating enough?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you go, oh my God, maybe the baby's not eating enough. And now you're ruined for the rest of your life because you just don't know anymore. Where you were confident 5 minutes ago, now it's gone.
Yeah. Yeah. And like not sleeping a lot at night.
Or waking up again after not.
Waking up a lot. They must be hungry.
So start giving them cereal. Because that works.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll help them sleep longer at night. No, don't do that.
Don't do that. Yeah. But that's a suggestion that usually comes up.
Right. And then, or like I used to pump this much. Now I'm not pumping so much, which we can just direct you immediately to our episode that we'll put in the show notes of how to pump more milk.
Oh, I hate pumping.
I know. But that's a big thing too, is like I used to pump. I hear that a lot. I used to pump this and now I'm pumping this.
Right.
How do I make more milk?
And we're not going to get into the whole pumping thing today because we do have a whole episode on it. And it's a whole different thing. It's a whole different thing. But I am just going to say, just for fun, we know pumping does not equate how much milk supply you have.
And you're right. It has nothing to do with it.
It's nothing to do with it. And that's all we're just going to leave that there because it has nothing to do with it.
Right. If you're in that situation, just go to badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com and find the episode and listen to that one. And then what else? Why else do people think that they have low milk supply?
Growth spurts. Well, that's babies wanting to feed more frequently all of a sudden.
Oh, yeah, like frequent nursing. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so, and that's what I mean when, like,
feeding.
maybe yesterday your baby was doing their regular every 2-hour thing, and now today they're fussier and want to feed every hour and a half and not napping well, and woke up during the night. So it must be that all of a sudden overnight your milk supply went away. No.
Yeah.
Growth spurts. That's another one. Yep.
So there are. Yeah, this goes into the whole like myths, milk supply myths, of which there are,
several episodes, I think, on myths, right?
I've like we talked about doing like an episode like every month on that because there's so many. There's so many that it's like impossible to cover all of them. But pretty much all of the myths that we talk about are myths.
Yeah, they're like milk supply driven, right? Like,
yeah, they're really, it's mostly milk supply.
It is huge. It is a huge thing. I have heard, there are some crazy things I've heard about milk supply over the years. And I think one of the ones recently that I heard that I was just like, what? Was somebody saying, well, I was told that I have to pump from the very start or else my milk supply is not going to be okay.
Oh, yeah. That was something that I wanted to, yeah. So, yeah.
Like, that does not, no. You feed your baby. That's what makes your milk supply where it needs to be. And comparing to other people's milk supplies, that's a huge downfall. Huge.
Yeah, or like, yeah. Like she makes a lot of milk or she's leaking. That must mean that she has a lot more milk than I do. Mm-hmm. Or I used to be engorged. I'm not engorged anymore.
Yep, that's a big one. Yep. Or I wasn't ever engorged at all. I'm not engorged. I thought I was supposed to get engorged. Nobody wants to be engorged. You're not supposed to get engorged.
Right. That's your body like figuring it out. That's your body initially confused.
Yeah.
Your body is just like, wait, what? A baby? Yeah. Oh, make milk. And then it's like, oh, too much. Because your body is just going to like make too much.
Because it doesn't
know
what
it dials back.
Yeah. And then as it's dialing back and regulating, you're feeling less full. So, and I always try to tell moms that, I'm like, in the beginning when your milk first comes in, you might feel full. I mean, some moms don't, but that doesn't mean anything. So you might feel full, and then a couple weeks later, you might not feel as full anymore. And I have a lot of moms that will contact me and be like, my breasts feel really soft. Mm-hmm. I'm not really full anymore. What happened? Do I not have enough milk now? And it's like, no, now your body's regulating. So you're going to feel full. And then in 2 weeks, you're going to call me and say, why don't I feel full anymore? That's normal. You're not supposed to walk around for the whole breastfeeding relationship feeling full and uncomfortable.
No, and that's not even good. I mean, that's like where clogged ducts and mastitis and all that stuff come in, right?
Right. And you're uncomfortable. You're supposed to feel like a normal human.
Right. It's not, breastfeeding is not, so you're not supposed to be miserable the whole time. That's not how it was made. Like when it's working well, you're totally miserable. That's not.
That's
usually
if you're in life, not this though. It's one of the things I think that people don't want to know is that the more you breastfeed, the more frequently your baby breastfeeds, especially in the beginning, the more comfortable you are. But in our society, people say, oh no, your baby's feeding every hour and a half. No, that's not right. You must not have enough milk. You're supposed to feed your baby and then not touch them again for another 4 hours. Like, that is not reality. The more frequently you feed your baby, the more milk your body makes, the more comfortable your body is, and the happier your baby is. But most people don't have that idea because society is like, you shouldn't be feeding your baby all the time.
Right.
You shouldn't be. And if you are, something's wrong.
And there's so much like bottle feeding norms that get pushed onto breastfeeding, right?
Totally different thing.
Because you do have to schedule bottle feedings. Mm-hmm. You don't bottle feed on demand.
No, you don't.
You are going to stick to a schedule. But so because of that, then it's like bottle feeding is so normal, breastfeeding is so abnormal here that we put all of that understanding of bottle feeding onto breastfeeding, and it just screws it up.
Right. When you get into a place from the very beginning where you are just listening to your baby, listening to your body, doing what your baby's asking, feeding on demand, all those things, everything works out the way it's supposed to. You're following the natural path of breastfeeding. When you get into this place where you're like, let me start pumping early, let me try to stretch the baby out, let me time my feeds, let's, make sure that you're feeding for this long, or make sure that you're feeding every 3 hours instead of every hour and a half. Like that, when you start trying to control what can't be controlled, that's when we start running into problems. But we really have a hard time with that because it's like you want to be able to control and measure and, be really, that is not ideal for newborn babies. It's just not.
Yeah.
But that's really hard for people to wrap their heads around.
Right. So if you're still convinced that you have low milk supply, why don't we, there are some things that could be going on that would actually be creating a supply issue.
Yes. So the thing is that the majority of women will make enough milk. Absolutely. The majority of women in the world make enough milk. But for that, small percentage that don't, or there are, like Abby's saying, there are things that can happen during your breastfeeding relationship that might trigger a decrease in your milk supply. So that's what we wanted to, that's what we're kind of talking about here.
Right. So, if you actually you're doing everything right and you cannot make enough milk, that is so rare.
It is.
And it's a condition, right? A particular condition can lead to this too.
Yeah, it's usually hormonal. Mm-hmm.
Or IGT, right? Where there's just not enough?
Oh, like insufficient glandular tissue?
Yeah. When there's just not enough tissue.
Yep.
But that is so rare.
Yeah, it's not as common.
It's not like it's just, running rampant through the human species. It's not. That's extremely rare condition that would actually prevent you from making a full milk supply.
Absolutely.
Or hormonal stuff. Or, okay, so let's talk about all the things. So as far as there could be latch issues.
Right. Yep. That's it. Latch issues from the very beginning. And when I say that is from the very beginning. So if your baby pops out of the womb, is not latching well, is not feeding well, they are not sending the message to your body that they need your body to make the milk. Because
the latch is preventing them from pulling the milk out.
Correct.
Right? So your body is not empty, your breast is not being emptied, and your body's not getting the signal to make more milk.
Right. So, and pumping, as we know, does not trigger the same hormonal response and does not empty the breast that the baby does. So when you have that separation there where the baby's not feeding well, that can trigger a low milk supply because the baby is just not stimulating the way we need the baby to tell your body in the beginning, this is how much milk I need. And then if you pair that with a really traumatic birth or a blood loss or, something like that, which can also add into issues with milk supply in the beginning, then that's kind of like a perfect storm. But if you get help early, so sometimes I'll have moms contact me a month in and the latch was never fixed and they're still having problems and, just kind of like pumping and supplementing and blah, blah, blah. But like the feed itself never got fixed. So it damaged the milk supply from the start. Mm-hmm. So get help early. That's pretty much the bottom line with that scenario. If it's a latch problem, if somebody's telling you on week 1, you're just not making enough milk, see somebody that, get a second opinion on that, because it's not that you can't make enough milk. It might be that something's going on there that's the baby's not telling your body what it needs.
Right. And that's so easily fixed.
Yes, it is.
It's just, these are things that have easy fixes. And the sooner that you do it, the easier it is to fix.
Absolutely.
Just like with anything.
And I think, people don't realize that babies need help in the beginning. Yes, breastfeeding is a very natural thing.
Right. Oh, yeah.
But they need help.
It's learned.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, everybody's learning. Your baby is learning just as much as you are about breastfeeding. Mm-hmm. Your baby has to figure it out.
Somebody said that to me the other day. They're like, I never realized that I had to like help the baby figure out how to suck and do what they needed to do. Like, yeah, you have to help them. They're babies. They're little.
Okay, let's talk more after a word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Fairhaven Health. The Milky's Milk Saver collects your leaking breast milk as you nurse or pump, allowing you to store extra breast milk effortlessly with each feeding. Simply slide the Milk Saver into your bra or tank on the non-nursing side. The Milk Saver collects the breast milk that is leaked when your breast milk lets down. Then simply transfer the milk into a storage bag. The Milk Saver holds a little over 2 ounces of breast milk, and people are constantly shocked at how much milk they are leaking and we're losing to a breast pad. People are reporting that they are collecting several ounces a day and sometimes a whole day's worth of breast milk. It's common to think that you're just leaking a few drops, but when the leaking milk is collected throughout the day, it adds up to a lot of milk. It's comfortable, it's durable and reusable, and has a protective lid to prevent spills. Check out the Milk Saver at Fairhaven Health, that's FAIRHAVEN health.com, and don't forget to use promo code BADASS for 10% off of your purchase. And today's episode is also brought to you by Love and Fit. Love and Fit is a unique activewear line featuring functional and innovative items for all women. From top-selling nursing and pumping sports bras, nursing tops, nursing hoodies, to pregnancy and postpartum support leggings. Feel supported and cute in their stylish items and fun colors. No more frumpy-looking nursing bras. Even if you are past the time of breastfeeding, their stay-put leggings can be worn by anyone. They are squat-proof, have pockets, and don't fall down during running or workouts. Touted just recently by Chrissy Teigen, she loves the Stay Put silicone grips. Check out Love and Fit on Instagram at Love and Fit Shop or shop online at loveandfit.com. And you can use promo code BADASS for 10% off of your purchase at Love and Fit. And today's sponsors can be found on badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com. Also, so our episodes can as well. And our show notes for this episode that will have links to all the things that we talked about. And we'll also have information about scheduling your online consultation with Dianne.
Those are popular, by the way.
Your online consultations?
Well, yeah, they've been,
now.
Been definitely, I think people are realizing that now, like, it's hard to get somebody to come to your home, or maybe there's nobody in your area, and, like, people reaching out, which is fantastic. We want to be able to help, help you.
Yeah. So go to badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com, go to the consultations tab and fill out the little form and schedule yours with Dianne. It's like, why wait?
It's easy.
Why wait for these issues that you're having?
Yep.
And so we also have our new segment, shout out of the week. And our shout out of the week this week is Mama's Village Fayetteville. They can be found on Instagram at Mama's Village Faye and on Facebook at Mama's Village Fayetteville. This is a nonprofit organization. They provide breastfeeding, birthing education, support, and advocacy for Black and brown families in and around Fayetteville, North Carolina. So that's them in person, but their social media is robust and educational and supportive, and you should follow them. Absolutely. Good people.
Yeah, absolutely. And that holds a special place for me because my first son was born in Fayetteville. So I love the work she's doing there. And she's an amazing, amazing human being, Angela, behind that. And she's like a doula and trains new lactation consultants and runs support groups for the breastfeeding mamas of color. And it's just like there's so much that she's doing for the community. It's just fascinating. Love it. So definitely follow them. Give them some love.
Awesome. And so, milk supply. Things that really can screw up your milk supply. We were talking about Latch.
Yep.
What about scheduled feeds?
Oh, that's terrible. Don't do it. So there are some books. We hate the books. I know I do.
Oh, yes.
So I'm trying to
Unless it's
one.
Diane's book.
Yes, unless it's mine. I'm trying to write one now. I'm working on it, people. It's a work in progress. But about the realities of having a newborn. Because a lot of the books, and I was just telling somebody this week, because they were like, well, the book didn't say this, and the books don't say this, and the books don't say this. Books are not geared towards newborns. They are not. They are geared towards an older baby. I'm telling you. Because your baby, if you start scheduling feedings, if you start trying to control feedings, your milk supply is not going to be the way we need it to be for your baby. So the scheduled feeds, if you're like, oh, but it hasn't been 2 hours, so we have to try to push it off. Let's try to get him to suck on a pacifier instead. Let's try to pass him to somebody else. Let's try to do everything but feed him. Your body is not going to make the milk that we need it to make. You're
not emptying the breast.
Right.
It's all going to come down to that.
And what we continue to think is, I must not be making enough milk. But what it really is just put the baby on the breast.
Yeah, your baby will make more milk.
That's what your baby wants.
Yeah, your baby and your body, they're designed by nature
to work together.
Yeah, right.
And we're fighting
yes,
against
it's learned.
it.
Yeah, yes, it's learned. Yes, you have to help them, but you're helping them to learn each other.
Yeah,
work for each other.
I mean, it's just we could talk forever about that. But so scheduled feeds are a big part of it for sure. So don't do that. Okay. As your baby gets older, you have to return to work, things like that, where you need a little bit more of a routine. Then it's a little bit easier to kind of start to schedule things a little bit. But even that I hesitate to say because it's not a good practice, but I know that when people have to go back to work that it just kind of happens.
Well, I feel like it's also kind of like sleep. In the beginning, when you have that newborn baby at home and you're just what's their sleeping schedule?
Oh.
They just fall asleep all the time, whatever, they just sleep. And then after weeks go by, you kind of start to learn when your baby's tired.
Right.
You start to kind of look at the clock and you feel your baby and you go, oh yeah, this is kind of when they have been falling asleep. This is kind of when they've started to get sleepy. And they find this eventually they kind of find this routine. You're not forcing them into a routine. They just develop their own. And my kids are 6 and 8. Exley wakes up at 5 or 5:30 every morning. And people say, oh, you need to put him to bed later. Okay, up yours. Because I put him to bed later and he gets up at 5 or 5:30 tired.
And then he's miserable all day.
He's miserable all day. This is his schedule. And we can, I can try to manipulate it as much as I want. I can't put him in a sleeper hold and make him go to sleep longer. There's nothing that, and I know every kid is different. And this is what we're saying. Every baby is different. They're going to find their own kind of routines. And this is a really long tangent for just a small point, but they're you will find at some point, you go back to work, or even if you don't go back to work and you're just at home, you don't have to force the schedule. Like they will find like a little bit of a routine that works for them.
And it's going to be different from your friend's baby.
Yeah. It's going to be totally different.
Yeah. Because, and like, even we can use Jack and Exley. Jack doesn't get up at 5 a.m., does he?
No. Well, if Exley's yelling and running around, he does, and he's pissed. Because he doesn't want to get up that early.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're different kids. Like, it's just, they're all going to be different. So even in the same family. And they're just going to kind of, but one of the things that helps you figure that out is breastfeeding. When you are breastfeeding your baby, you learn them very intimately and very quickly. Mm-hmm. So it does help you to figure out what they're doing faster when you are a breastfeeding mom, because you just become very much in tune with what's happening. And you know your baby really well. So the scheduled sleep or the scheduled thing is a big thing. Medications. So let's talk about this really quickly. Like, we do have an episode on medications, but I want to really make it known. A lot of people are like, oh, I'm really afraid about taking a medication because I'm afraid it's going to affect the baby. I'm afraid it's going to go to the baby. Blah, this thing with medications going to the baby. That's the last thing I usually think about. I'm more worried about, is that medication going to impact your milk supply? And I actually had a triage nurse call me one time because a mom had called the pediatrician's office and said, oh, can I take this medication? So they called me to ask me. And I said, yeah, that medication's fine, but I'm more concerned about what it could do to the milk supply. And they were like, oh, I didn't realize that was a thing, that it could impact milk supply for them. I just thought it was something that it could, impact the baby. Well, ultimately the milk supply will impact the baby, but it's not dangerous for the baby to get 0.0 tenths of this medication, of the dosage of what you're getting. But if it's something like an allergy medication, which is big, in the fall and in the spring in certain parts of the world, if it's, whatever it is, you need to look at it as, can this dry up my milk supply? Birth control. A lot of times that's a birth control thing. That's one of the first things I ask when somebody says to me, is something going on with my milk supply? Did you start a birth control? Because a lot of times doctors will tell you, oh, this won't impact your milk supply. This won't impact your milk supply. If there is hormones in that birth control and your body is very, very sensitive to anything hormonal, which some women are very sensitive to hormones, it can impact your milk supply. It is not one size fits all.
Yeah.
So that is definitely something to think about. Is the medication you're about to take, for whatever reason, something that's going to impact your milk supply? So that's something I usually ask about too. So we've got meds, your period coming back.
Oh, yeah.
That's something that can impact your milk supply because it's hormonal. And that is, usually you will find that your milk supply will dip during ovulation, and then it'll kind of come back up. Some women really struggle with that. Some women, because their body is sensitive hormonally, really struggle with the milk supply dipping and coming back up. And some women never notice it. Or just, it's one of those things.
So what can we do? Is there anything that we can do if our period come back, or we're starting a new birth control? Just wait it out, or?
If it's your period, there are some supplements. I'll have to look at it, and it's not something that that's not really my, like vitamins and stuff like that are not really my forte. I'm not good with that stuff. But there is a really good thing on Kelly Mom, so I'll put it in the show notes, about I think it's like zinc and something else that you can supplement your diet with that's supposed to be helpful during that period of time, during that ovulation, to help with your milk supply. So I can put that up so that people have that. If it's a birth control issue, I always say that just switch it, take it, be done with it. If it's any kind of birth control that can be reversed, like the pills or, Implanon, something that you can take out or stop, if you take it out or stop it, your milk supply will rebound. If it's something like the depot shot that you can't get out of your system, then you're just screwed. So it doesn't matter. But if it's something that you can take out and stop taking or stop using, then I that's usually what I suggest. if we can trace it back to that, then just stop using it.
Okay.
Pregnancy can do it too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you remember that when you got pregnant with Exley? Like what happened with you guys?
I think it's really unusual for you to maintain a milk supply through pregnancy. I think it's really, it's very common and usually would happen that like towards the end of the first trimester or definitely by the second trimester that your milk supply will be much, much lower. Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally remember. And Jack started slowing down. I really wanted to tandem nurse. And I knew it was going to happen. I knew my milk supply would go down, but I would just figured he would just like kind of comfort nurse all the way through because he was such a nursing person. Mm-hmm. But he started to nurse less, and I started to freak out. And I was like, "Oh my God, he's going to wean!" And that does happen sometimes. Sometimes they just happen they happen to wean while you're pregnant. But he still nursed a little bit. All the way through. And then when my milk came back, I mean, he was as happy as anybody.
Yeah, because it changes to colostrum. It changes back to colostrum. So some, we can call them toddlers at that point, right? Because usually that's where they are. But sometimes they're like, what's going on here? And then when the new baby's born and it changes back to milk. But we get this question a lot. Mm-hmm. And because a lot of moms are like really anxious to have their next baby. So they want to say, like, how do I, keep my milk? I want a tandem nurse. How do I keep my milk supply up if I get pregnant? And it's like, we really don't have a magical answer for keeping your milk supply up while you're pregnant. It's a totally hormonal thing. And
your body's preparing for your new baby, which is what it should be doing.
Right. And the thing that I always tell moms, I don't know if it brings them any comfort or not, is there's a lot of moms that tandem nurse. So it is very, very possible to just continue on, but it's going to be a decreased supply until the new milk comes in.
And and this happens sometimes. This is what, it's usually fine, and people, have they're pregnant and their toddler is 2 or 3 or whatever, and their toddler just decides whether they're going to keep going or not. But sometimes people get pregnant when their baby's like 8 months old. And they're surprised to learn that they're not going to be able to maintain their milk supply through their pregnancy. Mm-hmm. And then that's when that becomes an issue because you need breast milk for the 8-month-old baby.
Yeah. I talked to somebody once. She was talking about how her first baby weaned at like 9 months. And she was just like, I just, like my milk supply went down and I had gone back to work, and I was struggling to keep it up anyway, and da-da-da. And I'm like, and when did you get pregnant with the next baby? And she was like, right around that time. I'm like, that's why. She was like, oh my gosh, I never even put the two together.
Yeah.
And you don't. And that is stuff you're not going to hear probably from your pediatrician or your OB. If you say...
No, they're going to be like, oh my God, you have to wean. It's dangerous. That's what they're going to say. Yeah, oh my God, I'm pregnant. I'm breastfeeding. Oh, you have to wean. You have to wean.
Yeah. Or if you go to them and you say, my baby's 9 months old. I'm really struggling with my milk supply. They're going to be like, well, some babies, they just wean now. No, your baby doesn't just wean at 9 months. That's not typically what happens. There's something going on there. And it turned out that she was pregnant. And she just never connected the two because nobody ever said to her, your milk supply decreases when you get pregnant again.
Yeah.
It's just, your body is amazing.
Yeah, it doesn't care. It knows that your toddler's fine.
Yeah.
Your body is just like, well, we got a new one coming here. we're all hands on deck for this baby in here.
Yeah.
And you can't stop it. And why would you?
Right. It's just, there's things that you can't control. So that's one of the things we'll ask too sometimes is like, that's always did you get your period back yet? Because that can, obviously impact milk supply. That's one of the first things I ask. Are you in birth control? That's one of the first things I ask in pregnancy. Sometimes we don't plan those pregnancy things, right?
Right.
So it just happens. And that can be a reason why you have a decreased milk supply and you just don't even realize it. So the moral of the story here is that you should not go to bed breastfeeding your baby fine and wake up with no milk supply. Like that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
That does not happen. Your baby crying does not mean that you have no milk. That doesn't happen either. If you feel like there's a problem with your milk supply, then reach out to somebody. Don't get into these like black holes of the internet and mom groups on Facebook that are going to tell you, oh, you think your milk supply is low? Here, take these magic beans because that's what helped me.
Yep.
Or, drink this magic
You're not
shake.
drinking enough water.
Right. You know how many emails we get where people are like, I've been drinking a gallon of water a day. Nothing's happening. That's not going to do anything but make you pee all the time. That has nothing to do with your milk supply.
Yeah, no.
It's talk to somebody who can ask you the right questions and who can figure this out for you. Because it might not even be a milk supply problem. And if it is, it can be helped. Bottom line. Thyroid issues, that's huge for milk supply problems. Thyroid issues. And thyroid issues can creep up after pregnancy. So that can be a big deal too. So find somebody that can ask you all the right questions and kind of get to the bottom of it. Don't listen to anybody who says to you, well, you know what? My milk supply died when my kids were this age too. So it just happens sometimes.
No.
Mm-mm. No, don't
contact a lactation consultant. That's what we're saying.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of it is educational too. If you're in a situation where people are like, oh, your baby needs more milk, your baby needs more milk, your baby needs more milk. That might not be an issue. That might not be what's going on. Nobody should be feeding your baby too much milk while they're at daycare and then telling you don't have enough supply.
Oh yeah, that's a big thing. Yeah.
We could go on all day.
Uh-huh. But we won't. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening. Check us out next week too.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.